Ethan spent the rest of the evening combing through every inch of the house, determined to find something, anything, that might explain what had happened to his mother. He started in the attic, a place he rarely visited. The narrow staircase creaked under his weight as he climbed up, pushing open the dusty door with a groan. The air was thick with the smell of old wood and forgotten memories. Sunlight streamed through the small, grimy window, illuminating piles of boxes and furniture covered in yellowed sheets. At first glance, it seemed like just another storage space, filled with relics from their past. But as Ethan began digging deeper, he realized there was more here than met the eye. Beneath a stack of photo albums and Christmas decorations, he found a battered shoebox tucked away in the corner. Its edges were worn, and the lid barely stayed on, but inside were letters tied together with a faded ribbon. His heart raced as he untied the knot and unfolded the topmost letter. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the contents sent chills down his spine. "Claire," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm already gone. You can't trust anyone, not even those closest to you. They're watching. Be careful." There was no signature, only a hastily scribbled date from several years ago. Ethan's hands trembled as he read it again, trying to make sense of the cryptic warning. Who had written this? And who were they? Buried beneath the letters were old photographs, some faded and torn. In one picture, Claire stood smiling alongside a group of people Ethan didn't recognize. They looked happy, carefree even, standing in front of a bustling city skyline, a stark contrast to the quiet life they now led. Another photo showed her alone, sitting on a park bench, glancing over her shoulder as if worried someone might see her. These weren't casual snapshots. They felt deliberate, almost staged, as though she'd been documenting something important. Among the clutter, Ethan also discovered newspaper clippings, all dated years before he was born. Most of them detailed strange disappearances or unexplained events in a distant city. One headline caught his attention: "Local woman vanishes without a trace." The article mentioned a woman named Rachel Lane, described as reclusive and secretive. At the bottom of the page, someone, likely Claire, had circled the name and scrawled a note in the margin. Same pattern. As Ethan pieced these fragments together, a clearer picture began to emerge. His mother hadn't always lived in this sleepy town. She'd come from somewhere else, somewhere far more complicated and dangerous. Whatever had driven her to leave that life behind had followed her here, creeping into their home and shattering the fragile peace they'd built. But the most unsettling discovery came when he opened an envelope marked with shaky handwriting. For Ethan, inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. Her familiar handwriting greeted him, bringing tears to his eyes. "If you're reading this," it read, "then I've done what I had to do to protect you. Don't blame yourself for my choices. Trust your instincts and remember, you are stronger than you think. Love always, Mom." Ethan sat back on his heels, clutching the letter tightly. For the first time, he understood why she'd acted so strangely that morning. She wasn't just afraid for herself. She was terrified for him. Every secret she'd kept, every moment of paranoia. It all made sense now. She'd sacrificed everything to keep him safe, even if it meant leaving him behind. As night fell, Ethan descended from the attic, his mind racing with questions. Who were the people his mother feared? What had she known that put her in danger? And how could he possibly uncover the truth without putting himself at risk? Despite the fear gnawing at him, he felt a newfound resolve. His mother had left him clues for a reason, to guide him toward answers. He wouldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. That night, as he lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling, Ethan vowed to dig deeper. Somewhere out there was a trail leading to the truth about his mother's disappearance, and he intended to follow it, no matter where it took him. Ethan sat alone in the dimly lit warehouse, clutching the flash drive tightly in his hand. The weight of it felt heavier than it should, as though it carried not just data, but the entire burden of his mother's sacrifices. He knew opening those files would change everything. There was no going back once he saw what they contained. But staying in the dark wasn't an option either. If this was the key to finding Claire, then he had to face whatever truths lay ahead. When he returned home, Ethan plugged the flash drive into his laptop with trembling hands. The screen flickered to life, revealing folders filled with documents, encrypted messages, and video recordings. One file stood out immediately. A video labeled "For Ethan." His heart skipped a beat as he clicked on it. And there she was, his mother, sitting in front of a camera, her face pale but determined. "Ethan," she began, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. I'm so sorry for bringing you into this, sweetheart, but I need you to be strong now. What I discovered about VR isn't something they'll ever let go unnoticed. They're dangerous, powerful, and relentless. But so are you. Inside these files, you'll find evidence of their crimes, enough to expose them if used carefully. Don't trust anyone, not even people who claim to help. You have to finish what I started." Her words hit him like a tidal wave, mixing grief with resolve. As he sifted through the rest of the files, he uncovered shocking details about VR's operations, secret experiments, illegal surveillance, and countless lives destroyed. It was overwhelming, but each revelation fueled his determination to fight back, not just for his mother, but for everyone who'd been silenced. Over time, Ethan learned how to navigate this dangerous new world, with Marcus's guidance, at arm's length, as per Claire's warning. He began piecing together a plan to bring VR down. He reached out to journalists, activists, and others brave enough to challenge the organization, always careful to cover his tracks. Every step forward came with risks, and sleepless nights became his norm. Yet he never forgot why he was doing this. Her voice echoed in his mind every time doubt crept in. "You are stronger than you think." Months passed, and slowly cracks began to form in VR's impenetrable facade. Leaks surfaced online, exposing their atrocities to the public. Investigations followed, led by independent groups unwilling to back down. Though Ethan stayed hidden, his work left ripples that spread far beyond his small town. Through it all, he held on to hope that Claire might still be alive somewhere, waiting for rescue. But deep down, he feared the worst. Even if he never found her, he vowed to honor her legacy by continuing the fight she'd started. She hadn't raised him to give up when things got hard, and he wouldn't. One evening, as Ethan stood outside under the stars, he felt a strange calm wash over him. He pulled out the old photo of him and Claire from the county fair, running his thumb over her smiling face. "I won't stop, Mom," he whispered, "not until they pay for what they've done." Though shadows still lingered around him, Ethan walked forward with purpose. He wasn't just a boy searching for his mother anymore. He was someone fighting for justice, carrying her memory like a torch against the darkness. And as long as he kept moving, Claire's love and courage would guide him, lighting the way toward a brighter future. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and restless mornings for Ethan. The house, once filled with the comforting rhythm of daily life, now felt like a prison haunted by unanswered questions. Every corner seemed to whisper secrets, every shadow hinted at danger lurking just out of sight. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, by something or someone invisible, but undeniably present. At first, it was subtle, a flicker in the hallway light when no one else was home, the faintest creak of floorboards late at night, even though he knew he was alone. Once, while sitting in the living room trying to focus on a book, he heard his name whispered so softly it could have been the wind. But it wasn't the wind. It couldn't be. Each strange occurrence left him more uneasy than the last. Then came the shadows outside his window. One evening, as dusk settled over the woods, Ethan noticed movement near the tree line. At first glance, it looked like branches swaying in the breeze, but there was no breeze. Squinting through the glass, he saw figures darting between the trees, too quick to make out clearly. They weren't animals. They moved with purpose, deliberate and calculated. His pulse quickened as he grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the door, determined to confront whatever, or whoever, it was. Stepping onto the porch, he shone the beam into the darkness, sweeping it across the yard and into the forest. The world beyond was eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. No response, just the oppressive weight of the night pressing down on him. He took a few cautious steps forward, his eyes scanning the edge of the woods. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind him. Whirling around, he aimed the flashlight back toward the house and froze. Standing in the doorway was a figure cloaked in shadow, its face obscured. For a split second, Ethan thought it might be his mother, returned to him somehow. But then the figure stepped forward, revealing itself fully under the dim porch light. And it wasn't human. It was tall, unnaturally so, with elongated limbs and an angular frame that seemed to bend the light around it. Its skin, if it could even be called that, was pale and translucent, shimmering faintly like frost on glass. Worst of all were its eyes, black voids that seemed to pull everything around them into their depths. Ethan stumbled backward, his breath catching in his throat. Before he could react, the creature tilted its head slightly, as if studying him, then vanished into thin air without a sound. Ethan stood frozen, his heart pounding wildly. He wanted to run, to scream, to do anything, but his body wouldn't obey. Slowly, the world around him returned to normal, the oppressive silence lifting just enough for him to hear crickets chirping in the distance. Shaking, he backed into the house and locked the door behind him, sliding down to the floor as adrenaline coursed through his veins. That night, he barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those empty black eyes staring back at him. Whatever had taken his mother wasn't gone. It was still here, watching, waiting, and it knew he was looking for answers. As dawn broke, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, exhausted but resolute. If these creatures, or people, or whatever they were, had come for his mother, they would come for him too. But he wasn't going to let fear stop him. Piece by piece, he reviewed everything he'd found in the attic. The letters, the photos, the warnings. There had to be a pattern, a connection he was missing. Somewhere in those clues lay the key to understanding what had happened to Claire, and how to get her back. For the first time since she disappeared, Ethan allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. His mother hadn't raised him to give up easily. She taught him to fight, to think critically, to trust his instincts. And right now, his instincts told him one thing. The truth was closer than ever. All he had to do was keep moving forward, even if every step brought him deeper into the unknown. In a small, quiet town surrounded by dense woods, there lived a teenage boy named Ethan. He was 17 years old, with messy dark hair and a knack for drawing. His room was filled with sketches, some of landscapes, others of people he'd imagined in his mind. Life in their weathered little house wasn't perfect, but it was predictable. That is, until one morning when everything changed. Ethan woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside his window. The sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, casting soft golden lines across his wooden floor. It seemed like an ordinary day. Downstairs, he found his mother, Claire, bustling around the kitchen. She was humming softly, something she always did when she was lost in thought. But today, her movements were different. Instead of her usual calm demeanor, she seemed restless, almost jittery. Claire had always been protective of Ethan. Ever since his father passed away 5 years ago, she'd taken on the role of both parents, making sure he stayed safe and focused on his studies. But this morning, her behavior felt off. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. When Ethan asked if she was okay, she forced a smile and said, "Of course, sweetheart. Why wouldn't I be?" Yet her eyes darted toward the window every few seconds, as though expecting someone, or something, to appear. Ethan noticed how tense she looked but shrugged it off. Maybe she didn't sleep well, he thought, or maybe she was worried about bills again. Money had been tight lately, and he knew she often fretted over keeping the house running smoothly. Still, something about her unease lingered in the air, heavy and unspoken. As the morning went on, Claire grew more agitated. She kept peeking out the front door, scanning the street as if searching for something or someone. Once, she even snapped at Ethan when he asked if they could go grocery shopping later. "Not now," she said sharply before apologizing quickly. "I'm sorry, honey. Just not today." By noon, Ethan retreated to his room, hoping to escape the strange atmosphere downstairs. He grabbed his sketchbook and started working on a new drawing, a tree standing tall against a stormy sky. Drawing always helped him clear his mind. As he worked, he heard faint noises coming from the hallway, footsteps pacing back and forth, drawers opening and closing. Whatever was bothering his mom, it wasn't going away anytime soon. Little did Ethan know, this would be the last peaceful moment he'd have for a long time. Outside, hidden among the trees, unseen eyes watched the house. Inside, Claire's instincts screamed at her to act fast. Something, or someone, was coming, and she couldn't let it reach her son. For now, though, all Ethan could do was wonder why his usually steady mother seemed so shaken. And deep down, a tiny voice whispered that answers might come sooner than he expected, but not in the way he hoped. Ethan's footsteps slowed as he approached the house, each step heavier than the last. The familiar creak of the wooden porch boards beneath his shoes did little to ease the knot tightening in his stomach. Everything looked the same: the chipped paint on the doorframe, the potted plant wilting by the steps, the faint scent of lavender that always lingered in the air. But the warmth and comfort he once associated with this place now felt distant, replaced by an unsettling emptiness. He pushed the front door open cautiously, the hinges groaning softly. "Mom," he called out, his voice echoing through the quiet house. There was no reply, just the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen and the ticking of the old clock on the wall. His heart sank a little more with every unanswered call. The living room was exactly as he'd left it earlier that day. The worn couch, the stack of magazines on the coffee table, the blanket draped over the armchair, where Claire often sat while sipping her tea. Nothing seemed out of place. Yet something was missing, her presence. The house felt hollow without her, like a shell abandoned long ago. Ethan moved quickly from room to room, searching for any sign of her. In the kitchen, her half-empty mug still sat on the counter, cold now. Her purse lay untouched beside it, along with her car keys. She hadn't planned to leave. She wouldn't have gone anywhere without those. Panic bubbled up inside him as he realized she hadn't simply stepped out or run errands. Something had happened here, something she hadn't told him about. Upstairs, he checked her bedroom first. The bed was neatly made, the curtains drawn back to let in the fading light. On her nightstand, he found the framed photo of the two of them, taken years ago at the county fair. They were smiling so brightly, their cheeks flushed from laughter. He picked it up, running his thumb over the glass as if trying to hold on to the memory of happier times. Next, he searched his own room. Maybe she'd left him a note, something to explain why she'd sent him away and what she wanted him to do next. But there was nothing, not even a stray scrap of paper. Frustration welled up inside him. How could she vanish like this? Why hadn't she given him some kind of clue? Back downstairs, Ethan stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the front door. It was still slightly ajar, just as he'd left it when he fled into the woods hours earlier. Had someone come in after him left? Was that why she was gone? Or had she slipped out while he was away, hoping to protect him by disappearing completely? His eyes landed on the coat rack near the door. Her jacket hung there, the same one she'd been wearing that morning. If she'd left willingly, she would have taken it. It was chilly outside. This small detail gnawed at him, deepening the mystery. Wherever she was, she hadn't left prepared. And that meant only one thing. Something, or someone, had forced her hand. Ethan sank onto the couch, clutching his head in his hands. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. Who were the people his mother feared so much? What did they want from her? And most importantly, where had they taken her? For the first time in his life, he felt truly alone. The house, once filled with her gentle voice and steady presence, now felt suffocatingly empty. But amidst the confusion and fear, a spark of determination flickered within him. His mother had risked everything to send him away, to keep him safe. Whatever was happening, she must have believed he could handle it, that he could find answers where she couldn't. Sitting there in the dim light of the late afternoon, Ethan resolved not to give up. He owed it to her to uncover the truth, no matter how hard it might be. As he stood up and glanced around the silent house one last time, he noticed something odd, a faint scuff mark on the floor near the doorway. It wasn't enough to draw attention at first glance, but upon closer inspection, it looked fresh. Someone had been here recently. Someone who didn't belong. Ethan's pulse quickened. Whoever had taken his mother had been careless, leaving behind traces of their presence. Clenching his fists, he vowed to follow every lead, no matter how small. Somewhere out there, his mother needed him. And he wasn't going to stop until he found her, or uncovered the truth about what had happened. Ethan's feet pounded against the forest floor as he ran, dodging roots and leaping over fallen branches. His breath came in ragged gasps, each exhale forming small clouds in the cool afternoon air. The dense canopy of trees above blocked out most of the sunlight, casting long shadows that danced eerily around him. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves made his heart race faster. Was someone, or something, following him? After what felt like miles, Ethan finally slowed to a stop near a narrow stream. He collapsed onto the damp ground, clutching his knees as he tried to catch his breath. The sound of rushing water filled his ears, mingling with the distant chirping of birds. For a moment, everything seemed peaceful. Too peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that didn't feel natural, as though the world itself had paused just for him. As his breathing steadied, Ethan's mind began to replay his mother's frantic words. They're coming. Who were they? And why had she sent him away without an explanation? She'd always been protective, but this level of fear was unlike anything he'd ever seen from her. Something big was happening, something she hadn't told him about. But why keep it a secret? Why wait until now to act? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. How could she expect him to run without knowing what he was running from? What if she needed help? What if she was in danger right now? Guilt gnawed at him for leaving her behind, even though she'd begged him to go. He clenched his fists tightly, trying to push away the image of her tear-streaked face staring at him through the window. Time dragged on, and the silence grew heavier. Ethan strained his ears, listening for any sign of pursuit or trouble, but all he heard was the gentle babble of the stream and the occasional flutter of wings overhead. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The woods, usually so familiar to him, now felt foreign and unwelcoming. Each shadow seemed darker, each sound louder. Even the breeze carried a chill that seeped into his bones. Eventually, curiosity outweighed caution. As much as he wanted to believe his mother was safe, he couldn't ignore the nagging voice in his head telling him to go back. She might have told him to keep running, but how could he leave her like that? What if she needed him? What if she was hurt, or worse? With a deep sigh, Ethan stood up and brushed the dirt off his jeans. He glanced around one last time, half expecting to see someone watching him from the trees. But there was nothing, just the endless stretch of forest stretching in every direction. Taking a deep breath, he turned back toward the path he'd come from. As he walked, his thoughts raced ahead to what he might find when he returned home. Would his mother be waiting for him, relieved and ready to explain everything? Or would the house be empty, leaving him with even more questions than answers? Either way, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't stay hidden in the woods forever. Whatever was happening, he had to face it head-on. The journey back felt longer than before, each step weighed down by uncertainty. By the time he reached the edge of the forest, the sun had dipped lower in the sky, painting the horizon in shades of orange and pink. The sight of his house in the distance brought a mix of relief and dread. It looked exactly the same as when he'd left it. The porch light still on, the front door slightly ajar. But something about it felt different now, as though the warmth and safety it once represented had vanished along with his mother. Ethan hesitated for a moment, his hand resting on the rough bark of a nearby tree. Then, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead, he stepped out of the woods and began walking toward the house. The next morning, Ethan decided it was time to take action. Sitting around the house waiting for answers wasn't going to bring his mother back or keep him safe. He needed to follow the trail she'd left behind, no matter how dangerous it might be. With a deep breath, he grabbed the letters, photographs, and newspaper clippings from the attic and spread them out on the kitchen table. Each item seemed like a puzzle piece, but they didn't quite fit together yet. Focused and determined, he pored over them again, searching for any detail he might have missed. One name kept appearing in the documents: Dr. Evelyn Carter. She was mentioned in several of the letters as someone Claire trusted, or at least used to trust. A quick online search revealed that Dr. Carter had been an investigative journalist years ago, before disappearing herself under mysterious circumstances. Her last known address was listed as an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the same location shown in one of the photos Ethan had found. With nothing else to go on, Ethan made his way to the warehouse. The journey there felt longer than it should have, the road winding through desolate fields and dark patches of forest. The building loomed ahead, its windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti. It looked like the kind of place people avoided, which made it all the more likely to hold the answers he sought. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the roof, illuminating piles of old furniture and stacks of rotting cardboard boxes. Ethan moved cautiously, his flashlight cutting through the shadows as he explored the space. In one corner, he found what appeared to be a makeshift office, a rickety desk cluttered with papers, maps pinned to the walls, and photographs taped up haphazardly. Many of the images featured his mother, sometimes alone, other times with unfamiliar faces. Among them was a note written in her handwriting: "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Protect yourself, Ethan. Trust no one." Before Ethan could process what he was seeing, footsteps echoed behind him. Spinning around, he came face to face with a man who looked both weary and urgent. The stranger introduced himself as Marcus, claiming to be part of a group working to expose a powerful organization responsible for targeting people like Claire. According to Marcus, Claire had uncovered evidence of their illegal activities and had been running ever since, knowing full well they wouldn't stop until she was silenced. "She sacrificed herself to protect you," Marcus explained, his voice heavy with regret. "When she realized they'd found her, she sent you away because she believed you could still escape. But now that you're here, you need to understand what you're dealing with. This isn't just about your mother. It's bigger than that." Ethan listened intently, his mind racing to absorb everything Marcus told him. The organization, known only by its initials, VOR, was involved in covert operations spanning decades. They manipulated governments, silenced dissenters, and erased anyone who got too close to uncovering their secrets. Claire had stumbled upon something critical during her time as a researcher, something so damning that even those within VOR feared exposure. Marcus handed Ethan a flash drive containing files Claire had entrusted to him years ago. "She wanted you to have these if anything happened to her," he said. "They'll tell you everything you need to know, but beware. Once you see what's on there, there's no turning back. You'll become a target too." Ethan hesitated for only a moment before taking the flash drive. His mother had risked everything to shield him from this world, but now he understood why she'd done it. If he wanted to find her, and ensure others didn't suffer the same fate, he had no choice but to step into the fight. As Marcus disappeared into the shadows, leaving Ethan alone in the eerie silence of the warehouse, he knew one thing for certain. The truth was finally within reach. But uncovering it would come at a cost. Ethan was hunched over his desk, pencil scratching against paper as he worked on a detailed sketch of an owl perched on a branch. The afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, creating stripes of light across his cluttered room. His mind was calm, focused entirely on bringing the bird to life with careful strokes. But just as he added the finishing touches to its feathers, a sharp noise startled him, a loud thud followed by hurried footsteps racing down the hallway. Before Ethan could even stand up, his bedroom door flew open with such force that it hit the wall behind it. There stood Claire, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, as though she'd been running or crying, or both. In all his years, Ethan had never seen his mother look this way. She wasn't just scared, she was terrified. "Mom," Ethan stammered, dropping his pencil onto the desk. "What's wrong? What happened?" Claire didn't answer right away. Instead, she rushed toward him, grabbing his arm with a grip so tight it almost hurt. Her hands were icy cold, and they trembled as she pulled him toward the window. "You need to leave," she said in a hoarse whisper, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. "Now, Ethan, don't ask questions. Just go." Ethan froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Go where?" "Mom, what's going on?" He tried to pull away, but she held firm, her eyes wide and desperate. "There's no time," she insisted, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to burst into the room at any second. "They're coming, Ethan. I don't know how they found us, but you can't stay here. You have to run." The urgency in her tone sent chills down his spine. Whoever they were, they clearly meant trouble. But who? And why would anyone come after them? They lived a quiet life, far removed from anything dangerous. Nothing about this made sense. "Please, Mom," Ethan pleaded, trying to steady his breathing. "Tell me what's happening. Let me help you." But Claire shook her head fiercely, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, Ethan, this isn't your fight. It's mine. I should have left sooner. I should have protected you better." She paused, swallowing hard before continuing. "Take the woods. Run as fast as you can, and don't look back. Promise me." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. Never in his life had she spoken to him this way, with such raw fear and determination. Seeing her like this broke something inside him, but he also knew arguing wouldn't change her mind. If she believed he was in danger, she wouldn't stop until he was safe. Reluctantly, Ethan nodded. "Okay, Mom. I'll go. But you're coming with me, right?" She hesitated for a split second, then shook her head again. "I can't. Just promise me you'll keep running, no matter what happens. Don't stop. Not for anything." Before Ethan could respond, she pushed him gently toward the window. With trembling hands, she unlatched it and swung it open, revealing the dense forest behind her house. The cool breeze carried the scent of pine trees, mingling with the faint sound of rustling leaves. It felt surreal, standing there on the edge of normalcy while chaos swirled around him. "I love you," Claire whispered, her voice breaking. "Always remember that." And with those final words, she gave him one last shove. Ethan climbed out onto the windowsill, casting one last glance at his mother before jumping down into the soft grass below. As he sprinted toward the tree line, he couldn't shake the image of her standing there, tear-streaked and alone, watching him disappear into the woods. Though he didn't know it yet, this would be the last time he saw her.